Hello, it's Michael here from down under in Australia, joined by Ken. How are you, Ken?
Oh, great, Michael. Good to see you again with my Australian background.
Yeah, you've got the Australian background. I've got the office background. I could be anywhere. I could be spoofing you and pretending to come from another place,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm in
Hey,
Australia.
who would ever do that?
Hackers would. That's who, hackers. And of course, we are continuing on our series talking about various hacks and things like that. Ken being the specialist in the anti-malware virus ransomware type aspect. And I'm at the coalface facing all kinds of other unusual and weird things. A big thing for MSPs and IT guys of late has been Hafnium. And forgive my Australian accent if you say it differently. I think we all know what we're talking about. But yeah, look, a lot of people who are already in Office 365 weren't really affected by this. I suspect that this exploit, which targets Exchange, did probably attack Office 365, but Microsoft had already worked out what to do about it, cleaned it up, and then retrofitted that back to the rest of the world. So if you're in Office 365, the pain was almost zero. For all the rest of us who are running Exchange servers, especially small businesses, we were very vulnerable to this particular issue. Now, Hafnium's not actually a hack. Hafnium is the name of a hacking group. And this exploit that they used is now being used by lots of other hacking groups. And this particular hack, the whole idea is to get on your server for ransom. That's right. Everything leads back to ransoms and money and all that sort of pain. But what's it all about? Microsoft found a bit of an issue in their Microsoft Exchange product, their platform, since Server 2010, as an Exchange Server 2010, and every version right up until current. The patches were not so bad. Some of them were a complete reinstall of Exchange, and some of them were just a little exe you ran and it fixed it up. Now, basically, the problem here is that this exploit got out into the wild really quickly. And the group Hafnium got hold of this, and basically there was some concept code out there that allowed them to come in through what we use as webmail, Outlook Web Access. The feature that allows us to get our email while we're out of the office allowed them to put a file onto the server, and before you know it, the hackers got access to command line. Now, it doesn't matter how they get access. It doesn't matter what tool they use. Eventually, it all leads to the same thing. They're going to hack you. They're going to run ransomware, change account passwords, steal data, make a data breach, all kinds of things. And in this case, that's very much what happens. Most of us MSP IT type guys, we like to sort of preach about patching and patching and patching. But what do you do when Microsoft didn't have a patch? Microsoft didn't know about it. So Microsoft, even though they don't support back to as far as Exchange 2010, released an out-of-band patch because this is serious enough and there's enough servers out there to want to patch them. And that's what they've done. They've sent out a patch and all of us IT guys have gone around and we've installed it. Now, patching for things other than Microsoft is very important as well. You've got obviously Adobe PDF readers, you've got Google Chrome maybe, whatever it's got, you've got to make sure you patch everything. Why would you do that? Makes things faster, adds features, and stops the hackers. So patching is one of those things I cannot sort of not talk enough about. It's something I need to evangelize to you guys because yes, you might have access to Windows updates, and yes, it might be a pain that Windows 10 keeps updating features, but we need to do it because otherwise we end up having these discussions over and over and over again. So we've all gone out and patched these servers. What happened to the server or servers that were listed in that 60,000 in the US and 30,000 across the rest of the world and got hacked? And what actually happened? Well, from my experience so far, what I have seen is they got on the server with a command line, they went straight in and created a backdoor administrator account, they tampered with the Kerberos account, they made all kinds of changes to finally get their software up onto the system. Then they can spend, I don't know, a week maybe, downloading as much of the content as possible of your server, which is a data breach, and then deploy their ransomware. And the best way I found to stop it from deploying this ransomware and really attacking your network is not only having a good firewall and patching your Exchange, but having a good antivirus that supports side-to-side firewalls between workstations and servers and things like that. Of course, what happens here is up to the hacker. Hackers are very unique. Their fingerprints can be traced back and you can work out which hacking group did what, because they all use different tools, different methods to do things. So nobody can actually tell you what they've done because all these hackers do things differently. Yes, you can find the administrator account that's been changed. You can find the Kerberos account, had a password updated, find the ransomware that's been deployed, but they all do it in different ways. So how do you work out what they've actually changed on your server? Or do you have to rebuild your server? Here's the question, because unfortunately with all the PowerShell scripts and things like that, all the things they've been changing on servers is different for everybody that's been hacked. There's no rule book. There's no way of saying, I've definitely got Hafnium off this server and it's not going to be hacked again. And I'm sure that you've all heard of backdoor exploits where they get on a server and leave a little backdoor for themselves. And if we come along as administrators and we find there's a hacker on there, cut them out, a day later they're back. They might have created a little dodgy account somewhere or changed a permission somewhere or set up an FTP server or done something. And I'm sure, Ken, you've got lots of experience with these backdoor situations where hackers get themselves back in.
Yeah, that's almost a given. Anytime there's an exploit like that. I have not worked with the Hafnium exploit personally. I don't have clients that are in that environment. But one thing I am curious about, I know that Microsoft came out with some sort of remediation kit or a package of steps to take beyond just patching. You want to go into that in any more detail, or have you used that?
Yeah, so look, if you're really handy with PowerShell script, there's a number of scripts up there available through GitHub and off Microsoft's website, which will go through and look for little known things that get tweaked and played with. The most obvious for me was actually locating actual ASPX files and things like that in the IIS web server, which when you open up and look inside, clearly elevate a person to administrator and run the command line remotely for remote users. But the PowerShell does go through and it looks and checks your environment. It checks for changes. It checks dates on things. It does a lot of that sort of work for you. We've found it creates a lot of false positives. So really running those kits, I think given the age of these servers, we're talking Exchange 2010 and newer, lots of patches over time have been applied. Lots of various PowerShell scripts by administrators have been run for different reasons. And there's lots of little registry keys and things that are not quite correct and have broken over time. And that triggers a lot of false positives in the PowerShell scripts. It was a really best effort GitHub sort of approach where someone had developed a script, got it out real quick, and it did a lot of good things. It also generated a heck of a lot of logs to look through. And at the end of the day, if you've been done by Hafnium, if they've been on your server, it didn't necessarily highlight everything that they had changed on the server. If you were running the script because you hadn't seen any symptoms and you didn't think you were hacked, but you wanted to make sure you were safe and you had all the patches in place and everything was done correctly, the scripts are fantastic. But unfortunately, good old sleuthing is what's needed. The normal thing that you would normally expect, looking for accounts that shouldn't be there, looking for things in event logs, looking for any processes that are running that shouldn't be. So on the particular servers that I've seen, looking through the processes, I use Process Explorer or Process Monitor, going through and just checking that everything that's running is really a Microsoft product or something you've installed, doing all the usual sorts of things. And then these guys basically, once they've got your data, you've got to make sure you check your insurance, because wherever you might be located, US, Australia, wherever, you've got different rules. But letting your data out there is a big notifiable data breach. It can cause massive financial stress, so make sure you've got your insurance in place. And personally, if you've got these older Exchange servers, it's time to migrate to something new anyway. Microsoft at this time have released patches for these older servers, but if this happens again, I'm not so sure that they're going to be so interested. With the most recent changes to the way Outlook on mobile devices, iOS and Android works, it won't talk to some of these older servers now anyway, due to the TLS version that's supported by Exchange. So Microsoft are kind of accidentally moving you forward anyway. Obviously, in this case, Exchange 2019 was also a target of this particular issue, but I can tell you now, Microsoft released patches for that through Windows updates quite regularly, whereas the older products, not so much interested in that. So patching, again, might be a better idea to think about migrating Office 365 or Server 2019 for Exchange, or whatever the new beast is that Microsoft do create. So that's where we've gone with Hafnium. My experience with it so far is I've found probably close to 100 servers or so that were probed, so they were definitely in line to be hacked. We've found one server in particular that was in a group of companies that you would expect would be hacked. They are a very high target to do with civil infrastructure. From what we found, they'd gotten to the point of transferring data. We did the usual thing of contact the internet provider, have a look at how much data transfer had occurred during the period of time. It did spike. We can see data has happened. And from there, we did actually obviously look at their insurance policies and things like that. And then from there, we looked for any executables running, and they hadn't quite got to that point yet. Now, what am I going to do with this client? Office 365. I can't guarantee this server is going to be patchable. I can't guarantee I've found all the backdoors. The PowerShell script did send off a lot of alerts. We cleaned up a lot of things. We've got them working again, but there's no guarantees once this sort of thing has happened. So again, whenever you're cleaning up for ransomware, things like that, it's not always the best policy to completely rebuild the machine. Sometimes it's attached to very large organizations. You can imagine if a server's got 70 odd users on it, it's going to take down 70 odd people. If it's going to be rebuilt, it's going to waste a lot of their time. So sometimes fixing these things is the right thing to do. And sometimes when you've got advice like get off that platform and move to Office 365, that's also the right thing to do. And I know generally with malware, ransomware, all that kind of thing, trying to mitigate and prevent it from happening is the way to go. And obviously repair can be done. But in this situation where there are so many unknown backdoors, again, rebuild or move on. Any comment on that, Ken?
No, there again, I'm not really seeing that environment with my clients. And so all this experience is firsthand for you and hearsay for me. So I'm glad it's in capable hands down under.
Yeah, so look, now this is sort of kind of all blown over. At the moment, I think most servers out there are now patched or people have moved on. There are a number of servers where people are still doing investigations and forensics and tracing and tracking. But let's hope that next month, so let's get through this month of cleanup. Let's hope next month that we're in a much safer world, things have moved on, and that Ken and I have got something much brighter to talk about, give you some information on new and upcoming things maybe, but something not so dark and devious from the old days. Exchange 2010, it was a great product, but yeah, it's getting old.
Well, of course, right. In a way, it's good news that we didn't have anything new to talk about this month, except for that particular breach. But other than that, it's same old thing: patch, update, obsolete stuff. Think before you click. All the same things we've been saying for 10, 15, 20 years now.
Yeah, it's like the new products come out that ransom, and there's this new logos that come up on those ransom screens that lock you, and there's new groups behind them, but they're all using the same ideas. They're going to get your data, they're going to encrypt your data and try and make some money from your data. And if you don't pay them that money, then hey, they put their data up on the web and they're going to hold you to ransom other ways. It might very well cripple your business or your client's business. So as Ken said, just same old thing, patch, keep aware of things. If you feel something is a bit of a scam, don't proceed with it, whatever it might be. Same old information. A new angle on it maybe, someone found an exploit in an Exchange server, but at the same time, it ended up in the same little bucket of ransomware and the same process to mitigate and work forward.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for all that fresh information.
Yeah, look, thanks for joining me, Ken. And I think it's your heading off to bed there, isn't it? And to me, it's waking up here in Australia. It's always fun.
It's 7 o'clock in the evening here, so I still have another about 8 hours before my bedtime.
Oh, there we go. See, us guys, we never sleep. I'm trying to keep you guys safe out there. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us again. And until next time.
See ya.